Welcome to Bed Crime Stories podcast. I'm your host, T. I don't know if anybody's out there because I did not pre-schedule this, but I just got back from my experience at the trial of Lori Vallow Daybell for the death of Charles Vallow, her fourth husband. And I thought it would be easiest and quickest to get on here and do a live. But of course, I could just be here talking to myself. However, I'm going to continue in the hopes that somebody out there finds me. Can you hear me? Maybe my audio isn't working. You're there. You're there. Okay, cool. Can you hear me? I'm assuming you can hear me. I hope the audio's okay. Very cool to see you, Mrs. Jackson. Yay! Okay, it might just be you and me, but we will have a little discussion here. Cool. Yes, so I did. I went down there today, and I have to say I was a little bit nervous. It was awesome. The good. Hi, Shaza. Great. I'm glad the audio's good. Oh, very cool. Everything's working. Yes, I just wanted to come on here and give you guys my take on my first experience in the courtroom, seeing Lori Vallow Daybell for the first time in person, and the whole shebang. It was so interesting. It was overwhelming in many ways because I saw people who are connected to the case, such as Charles Vallow's sister, Kay Woodcock, was there, and she looked very solemn today. And it was pretty clear she didn't want to talk to anybody. She had a victim's advocate with her the whole time. Yay! Oh, cool. You go to Brandon Boudreaux. Yes, I'm hoping that I can hit that entire trial. That would be awesome. Yeah, so I went there and I didn't know what to expect. I have to say, waiting outside the courthouse, I was greeted by a group of people who've been following the case all the way from Idaho to here, and they were very welcoming. They were like me. They're like, "Were you nervous to come down here?" And I was like, "Yes, I was very nervous." They make you feel so at home. They introduce themselves. They're warm, they're friendly, they're funny. They've been to the trials in Idaho. They know pretty much everything about the case. So that was a very nice way to start. We were led into the courtroom or the courthouse at 7:30. Then we went up to the 5th floor, and I got to the courthouse at about 7:30, and trial didn't begin until either 10:15 or 10:30. So we all sat there for quite a while, and the chairs quickly filled up, meaning, the seats that would be available inside the courtroom. Hi, Raspberry, welcome. And I saw Annie Cushing. So she is Lori Vallow's third husband, Joe Ryan. That's his sister. So she's been at the trial, and she is so nice. And I talked to her for probably the first 3 hours. She knows everything about this case. She had a YouTube channel called Analytics. I think she still has it, or Analytics. And she was looking at all the data, and information about her brother's death, because she definitely believes that it is very possible that Lori Vallow Daybell might have done him in as well, because everything was so shady about his death. She said the state cremated her brother, so it doesn't sound like Lori Vallow initiated that, but there's a lot of reason to believe that Lori was probably, allegedly, involved in Joe Ryan's death. Maybe. I think I've covered myself there with my allegedlys and my maybes. So I talked to her for about 3 hours, Kay Woodcock was there, as I said. I wanted to say something to her, but she was very unapproachable. And I spoke to somebody else who knows her from the Idaho trials, and they said she doesn't want to talk to anybody right now. You know, if it's somebody she doesn't know, she's just not open to it right now. And you could see there's a strain there. She's been through so much. I mean, she lost JJ, she lost Tylee, she lost her brother Charles. It's been a lot, obviously. And apparently, Lori Lori Vallow Daybell sent a subpoena to Larry Woodcock today or yesterday. And when she was asked about it, she said, "Oh, no, no, I didn't mean to send that. It was just in a stack and I was signing all of them. And I really didn't notice that his name was on there." And the judge told her, "Well, for the next trial, the Brandon Boudreaux trial, I'm going to need you to pay more attention. I'm going to need you to know what you're signing and that you look at each page and you know what you're doing." So he kind of slapped her hand a little bit on that. Let me see. Okay, so I want to tell you the courtroom itself was freezing cold, and it was that way all day. When they do the sidebar, the white noise that they use is so loud, the whole room fills with this shh kind of sound, and it's really loud and overwhelming. It's very strange. The jurors, it was striking to me how many men are up on the jury. You know, you hear the numbers, but then you see all these men come in. It's like 12, I can't, is it? The alternates are sitting in on the trial, so everybody's there. So it's all men except for 2 women. So it's all, you know, I was like the testosterone crew over there. And some of them are younger, some of them are middle-aged. There's one guy who looked pretty tired when he came in. And he, at one point, he was just looking at the ceiling. And I kept thinking, I wonder if he's really listening. Is he checking out? Not everybody was taking notes. They can take notes, but not everybody was. And I would think in this case, you definitely want to take notes. So that was kind of strange to see. I think Lori really feels confident having all those men on her jury. I think she thinks she's going to be able to woo them. Exactly. She's using that little baby voice. And another thing I noticed she does. So I was sitting, I could see her, I was behind her to the right, and I could see her every now and then looking over at the jury and smiling. And you can tell she's definitely trying to use her charms on them, but they didn't look like they were buying into it. I didn't see anybody smiling back at her. So I don't know if she's working it, if she's being as successful as she thinks she can be with these guys. She also, her hair looks amazing in person, and I hate to talk about that. Yeah, I think she was trying to flirt with the jury. I hate to say this, but she looked good. She looked like she was tan. I don't know if she's been spending her hour outside in the sun. Hi, Bluesinia, welcome. She was tan. She had a full face of makeup. Her lips were like a really rich kind of coral color. Her hair looked great. Her hair looks even better in person, which is kind of upsetting. It's like really like Goldilocks, luxurious. I don't know how she's getting her hair highlighted like that because it's sort of dark, you know, underneath and on the bottom, but then you see the streaks. So I hate to say it, but she looked good. I didn't want her to look good, but she did. Let me tell you what else. I'm just going to kind of go through my notes here. This is not well organized, so please forgive me for that. It sounds like she is going to try to have her mother, Janice Cox, and her sister, Summer Shiflett, testify. And Let me see. She also sent a subpoena for her father, Barry Cox. So that should be interesting. But she couldn't say if he had it, if he'd received it or not. She also subpoenaed Zach Cox, which is Adam's son. She thinks he can testify to what her brother Adam said he did on the day before Charles was shot, the day Charles was shot, and the day after Charles was shot. Let's see what else. I'm sorry I'm not organized, but I wanted to get on here as soon as possible. So we started the day with the same female detective who was testifying yesterday at the end of the day. And Lori asked her questions about where the property was taken, where any evidence was taken, the 20-minute drive to the police department. They were talking about Charles' phone, and Lori was asking the detective if she looked on the phone, if she saw any threatening text messages from Charles to Lori. And the detective said she didn't see them. She didn't look into them at all. That wasn't really her job that day. Let me see here. Apparently, Lori had 2 phones, and the detective was asked by the state, did she know that Lori had 2 cell phones? And the detective said no. And the detective was unaware at that point that Lori had Charles' cell phone with her. She failed to turn the tracker, or the GPS off on Charles' phone. So all of her movements when she had Charles' phone with her, they know everywhere that she went thanks to Charles' phone. Then she asked the detective, the female detective, if she was aware of the $2 million life insurance policy. She keeps bringing that up, and I don't know if she's trying to make it seem that maybe it was when she says self-defense, that maybe she's going to try to make a case that Charles was going to attack her too, not just Alex. I guess I've always thought of the self-defense in terms of Alex fighting Charles, but she keeps bringing up these threatening text messages and emails, maybe to make the point that maybe Charles was coming to do her in for the $2 million life insurance on her head. I'm not sure, but that's the feeling I got. Now, when they were taken down to the police station, you guys probably heard all this if you were watching the trial. Did you watch the trial all day? Are you aware of everything that went down? I was surprised that we started at 10:30. I'm trying to remember if there was a morning break. Oh, for a 5-year period. Oh, interesting. Today you were there? Wow. Oh, you did? You watched all day. Okay. The day went by so fast. It's like we have a break for the morning, and then all of a sudden it's lunchtime. The lunch was only an hour today. We get back there, and I felt like we were only in there a short time before we found out that the next witness, the next state witness, a detective, is sick. So suddenly the whole day was over, and I was like, wow, that really went quickly. I was also sort of shocked. I don't know why, but when Lori talks about JJ and Tylee, there's no emotion. You would think after what happened to those kids that any mention, especially in her opening statement, she was doing sort of the crying thing. It just those names just slide off her tongue so easily. And it's just there's no connection to those kids. There's no emotional tie. There's nothing there. Same thing with Charles. And it does annoy me that she keeps calling him my husband, my husband. It's just taking I don't know. she's also pulling like the jealousy thing with the women. Oh, cool. So there's some value here. I feel like I'm rambling, but I want to kind of tell you guys like what I was noticing in there. Honestly, it was so overwhelming because I saw so many people that I recognized. I saw Nate Eaton. I didn't get a chance to talk to him. I did see Lauren of Hidden True Crime, and I did get to speak with her, and she's absolutely the sweetest person. Just she just gives off warmth, like it's like an aura around her. And then I met Gigi of Pretty Lies and Alibis. So that was kind of cool. Um, they're working, so they're like totally like in work mode, taking notes, running back to their hotel rooms, writing everything up, doing their lives, doing their recordings, all of that. Let me see here. Then we had, let me see. Lori was asking a lot about, you know, how they were monitoring things and the interviews with Alex and her and Tylee and how they were taken to different rooms. And then she's saying that the entire altercation between Charles and Alex only took a couple of minutes. That's what she told the detective, like 2 minutes. She said Tylee ran out with the bat and then we ran outside and the whole thing like was 1 to 2 minutes. I absolutely do not believe that. I don't believe anything about this story at all. Everything to me was staged in that scene. The people who saw the autopsy images of Charles Vallow, they said that the marks on his knees, the scratches, were really shocking. Oh, that's cool, Mrs. Jackson. Oh, I love it. Yes, I like her too, Linda of It's a Crime. Yep. They said that those scratches on his knees, like they were severe. And so we're trying to figure out, like, if you're shot through the chest, do you really just slump down to your knees with a weapon that is that powerful? It's a weapon that has a lot of kickback from what I heard. And I just can't figure out how he got the knee injuries. Clearly, they laid him out on the floor because there's no way he would have been lying like that. The way things went down, the way those bullets entered his body and everything, there's no way he would have been flat on his back like that. And then of course they put the baseball bat on the wrong side. They put it on the right side, not the left side. He's left-handed. It was a metal bat, and we know that Charles must have been ambushed the minute he stepped inside that house, because I think Alex was no match for Charles in terms of physicality. And Charles, being a ex-semi-pro baseball player, he would have smashed Alex's skull if he was defending himself to the death. Like if he had a chance to realize that his life was going to be threatened and he had access to a baseball bat, I'm pretty sure it would have been Alex who died and Charles who filed a report and claimed self-defense, and it would have been legitimate. So I think the whole thing was staged. It was really interesting, Annie Cushing. So again, that's Joe Ryan's sister. She knew, she spent that time with Tylee after Joe Ryan died. And when she was there, she met JJ, of course. And she said JJ was a very active child. He was always in motion. And in the house, he would run around like he had a certain path that he ran. And there's no way that when they put him in the car, they could never even get a seatbelt on him or keep it on him. He would just be like moving all the time. There was no way to restrain him. So Lori's story about putting JJ, or Charles having JJ in his rental vehicle with the key in the ignition and the car running, is, according to Annie, she's like, there's no way that it happened like that. Charles would not have left JJ out there. He knew just as well as Lori that JJ would have taken off. You could not hold JJ down. So there's no way he would have been in that vehicle. And the other thing she said is that she definitely believes that JJ did not witness his dad, Charles, getting shot, because if he had, he would have gone ballistic. There would have been no holding him back, no stopping him, no keeping him quiet, no getting him to tell a certain story. So everybody kind of feels like Tylee was told what to say. And I'm pretty sure, there's a good possibility that Tylee was afraid. Because if she knew what her mother and her uncle were capable of, it had to have crossed her mind, especially when she heard her mom saying that she was dark or something. Remember? And she was like, "No, not me, Mom." And I've kind of come to the conclusion that I really feel, and I don't like to blame people, but I feel like Lori's sister, Summer Shiflett, Lori's mother, Janice, I feel like they could have helped stop this madness. Maybe they couldn't have prevented Charles' death, but I think they had enough information about everything that was going on that they could have prevented the deaths of the children and possibly Tammy Daybell. And Annie told me that there's some kind of, I don't know if it's an email or a text, that Summer Shiflett allegedly said something to Lori like about Charles, if he's really that dark, then I'll help you almost. It was, okay, allegedly, I'm going to say allegedly, but this is what Annie Cushing told me today, because she read the whole FOIA document, the whole everything that was in there. She knows this case really well. So I don't want to say that. I just feel like if everybody had been open and honest, and if they'd recognized, excuse me, my throat's kind of sore, if they'd recognized Lori's descent into the darkness and her delusions, and if they'd really listened to her, and if Summer had any clue, oh, hi, JM, I see you, JM Pick. Welcome. Thanks for showing up here. I just decided to go live finally. These things terrify me, and that's why I didn't want to do my face, because I'm like, I think it'll be easier the first couple times if I just do it like this. Oh, you saw that, Mrs. Jackson? Yes. So there's something, yes, her channel is really good. She told me that she has an extensive timeline of everything that went down with her brother's case. So I'm going to be heading over to that, and I really want to look that over. She was pointing out, I'm trying to remember, she noticed a lot of things, like when Charles Vallow was trying to tell the Gilbert police, I think it was the Gilbert police at that point, that he wanted to do a mental health thing with Lori. Remember that? They have him on body cam footage. He said that Lori had said to him, I could something like, I'll kill you too, like TOO, as in maybe I did Joe Ryan in, and now I'm going to maybe do it to you, Charles. So I'm going to review that body cam footage of Charles trying to get the police to help him. Of course, they didn't help him. And that's one of the big things, too, that everybody kind of has a bit of an issue with, is how could the Chandler PD drop this so quickly and go with the self-defense, story? Because you have a guy who gets shot in the heart and then another wound, which is overkill. You have the timeline all messed up. Once they started putting the pieces together, that the 911 call was made 47 minutes after the event, all of that should have been a massive red flag. So it's just really like shocking that they dropped the ball like that. And I mean, you see the detectives and you're like, they sound like they were really trying to do a good job. So, like, how did this whole thing end up ignored? And, they just buy Alex's story when nothing is making sense. He barely has a little wound on the back of his head. The whole crime scene, I'm going to call it a crime scene, um, allegedly, it had to have been cleaned up because the only blood was underneath Charles' body. There wasn't any blood spatter on the walls. I think there was a little bit of blood in the sink in the kitchen, but aside from that, there wasn't. So I think we know for 47 minutes, they were, at least Alex was cleaning up, putting the bat where he thought it should go next to Charles, wiping up blood probably. And what's interesting is after their initial trip to the police department, the Chandler Police Department, how did that go? They actually were able to go over to Alex's house. And after that, Annie Cushing told me that the cell phone data shows that they went to a medical complex, and it just happens to be where Summer Shiflett's husband or significant other, who's a chiropractor, has an office. And she checked it out on Google Maps and was looking like, why did they drive over there that day, July 11th? And what she saw was a whole bunch of dumpsters. So somebody else was saying maybe that's where they put all the rags that they used probably to wipe up, blood in the living room where this went down. Because, the whole way, their story doesn't make sense. And they had to like clean it up so that they're trying to trick the police into thinking, this was self-defense. He fell right there. That's exactly how he fell. But none of it makes sense. The wound through the heart would have sent blood everywhere, you'd think, right? So we're getting a better idea of what they were up to that day. Let me see. So apparently JJ was kind of an eloper, He liked to run and he was in constant motion. It was interesting too to hear that I knew this, but like she was feeding him chicken fries and a Sprite for breakfast. Apparently, Lori fed the kids junk food. The whole like pantry was full of junk food when Annie went there. She said it was very hard to find any protein. So I don't know what Lori was feeding the family, but it sounds like there was an unlimited supply of junk food for her children. I don't think she was eating it based on her physique. It's just interesting that she didn't really care if JJ had chicken fries and a Sprite for breakfast. Yes, she took his phone, his rental car, to buy the flip-flops, yes. And at some point, she also had his wallet, and she had the hotel key to that hotel that he was staying at. And she didn't hand that over until July 12th. So you got to believe they were in that hotel room at some point that day. Let me see here. What else do I have? Annie said that Tylee, hi Pandies, that Tylee was a very analytical child. She said it's a very Ryan trait. And she said that Tylee, one time Lori was saying something about Tylee and it was a compliment. And Tylee corrected her because she said, Mom, I didn't really do all that. She kind of, even though she could have just stayed quiet and let everybody believe the praise that Lori was giving her, Tylee was sort of so honest and frank that she just came out and said, no, Mom, I didn't do that. And I thought that was interesting. And I need to revisit Tylee's interview with the police and also the one when she was with Melanie Gibb and her mother, and they were doing like the mental health evaluation at the police station, I think. Because apparently Tylee says some things in there that demonstrate that type of character that she had, where she'll correct her mother and say, no, that's not right. She was very honest and frank, according to Annie. Let me see here. Da, da, da. Yeah, I only saw like 2 jurors taking notes, so I'm a little concerned about that. Two detectives from Idaho sat in front of me. They've traveled here, and they seem very invested in the case. Um, Annie Cushing was a little concerned that there could be reason to appeal this case because of the Celebrite download of Charles' phone. It sounds like the state really didn't hand over everything to Lori. And it sounds like the judge maybe didn't quite understand the whole thing somehow. I don't know. But she was saying how she was worried that there might be an appeal issue there. And did you hear where Lori was talking about all the women that Charles had supposedly contacted? I think he was only going to be here for 3 days during that period, the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th. And apparently he had multiple dates. It wasn't just what's her name? Nancy Jo Hancock. Is that right? There were 2 other women that he was trying to have dates with. So he was busy. It's kind of crazy how busy he was. I kind of wish he would have been more focused on what was going on, with going to the house with JJ. And like once he saw Alex's car, I really wish he wouldn't have gone inside, because you think he would have had like a red flag going, oh man, this is not a good idea for me to step inside there. Why didn't they meet at a public location and have Lori hand over JJ someplace safe? It's a little bit crazy, but I wonder if Charles was distracted somehow with all that. Let me see here. Oh, the whole story about the flip-flops and going out to buy the flip-flops. For some reason, as I was seeing the receipt and seeing the flip-flops and how fast she was moving to get those flip-flops, tear them apart and put them on their feet, it just felt like, I wonder if that was a contrived part of the story, that they wanted the police to believe that they took off so quickly out of the house that they didn't have their shoes on. And that's why they had to get those flip-flops, and that might have been part of the narrative to drive home that this all like blew up really quickly, and Lori needed to get the kids out of the house to keep them safe. So they didn't even have time to grab their shoes. And Annie, when she looked at Tylee and the way Tylee was dressed, it did look like Tylee probably just woke up, got out of bed, and was still wearing the clothes that she maybe had slept in the night before. Did you see Lori kind of laugh once again over the one detective's last name and the pronunciation of it? I just find it weird that she's giggly like that when she's on trial for this very brutal, heinous crime. And she talked a lot about them not letting them know that they could leave at any time from the police station that day, that nobody told them that they had the right to get up and leave. She's kind of making it sound like she's pretty naive about how things work down there. Like she didn't know that she was being videotaped. To me, it seems like we should all know by now that when you go in a police station and they take you into an interview room, you're going to be on videotape. And I guess they don't have to tell you. that you're being recorded. She didn't seem to like that, and she didn't seem to like not being told that she could leave at any time. And then did you hear Lori bring up that Charles had maybe paid somebody $1,000? And there was some mention earlier of like, somebody mentioned to me that Charles was maybe getting catfished by some women. So I don't know. They objected to it, so there was nothing else said about the $1,000 that he maybe gave some woman allegedly. I don't know. Okay, let me see here. One thing that Annie kind of drove home was how very competitive Lori is. And it's about everything, you know, even going to the gym to lift weights. Annie apparently was able to lift more weight than Lori could. And Colby was giving them a workout when she came to spend time with Tylee after Joe's death. And apparently Annie could press more weight than Lori could. And Colby was kind of ribbing her about that, ribbing Lori about it. And Lori clearly did not take that well. She did not like that very much. And it was pretty obvious. Let me see what else I've got here. I'm sorry. Let's see. Some people who were spectators who were going to go into the courtroom were talking about how they're worried that the state is not has not yet presented a case that definitely shows that Lori was conspiring to, you know, unalive Charles. They feel like the state hasn't shared enough evidence of the conspiracy. And I don't know that I feel that way. To me, it all looks like a slam dunk. But of course, I'm not in the jurors' heads because the jurors supposedly do not know what happened to JJ and Tylee and Tammy. They don't have that background. So it's really hard to know how they're drinking in the testimony and what Lori's saying, how they're viewing all this. You know, to me, it just seems like so obvious what happened, but maybe to them, to the jurors who really don't know everything about Lori, maybe there could be reasonable doubt after all of this as to whether she definitely conspired with Alex. I mean, she made sure she was out of that house in a hurry, and he was there, but she did admit to being there when Charles was shot. So she does place herself there at one point. It's all, I don't know. You got to really pay attention in this because it's hard to know where's Lori going with this. Why is she asking these particular questions? What's her goal here with that line of questioning? And I definitely get the feeling that the people that are testifying loathe her. Like nobody who's testifying, none of the detectives, the medical examiner. I don't know, maybe they just have on their stoic faces, their stoic court faces, but it seems like everybody's they're not smiling at her, they're not warm, they're not joking in any way or laughing with her. Everybody is very, very serious. And to me, I could be just imagining this, but I feel like they're looking at her with just absolute disdain because we know what she's been convicted of. So nobody is really like digging this lady too much. Yes, and at one point I saw Lori shaking her head and looking at the jury. So she is pulling that card where she's trying to dispute the when the state is interviewing a witness on the stand. If Lori disagrees, I saw her shake her head and sort of smile and look at the jury. Let me see. This is so weird. I feel like I'm getting a cold. I go to court one day and all of a sudden by the afternoon, I feel like I have a sore throat. Yeah, because people were saying, are they really proving the conspiracy? Are they really? But maybe they just need time to put the whole puzzle together and, bring the pieces together. Right now, everything's being shown. And it's a lot when you see the cell phone data and the PowerPoint that the detective Werther put together. To me, you really had to they went through it really quickly. And I was kind of like, I wonder if the jurors are like grasping this, because I felt like I could have spent some more time like looking at those images and really having everything explained very carefully about where the phones were going and what the travel, all that stuff. Um, and it's interesting that the detective Werther, when he went to the Burger King and he saw the timeline on saw Lori going through the drive-through, that's when the timeline really started to show that, wow, it wasn't what they thought it was. It wasn't like Charles had just been shot right before the 911 call. Let's see here. Yeah, I've made a note too. I feel like Lori's victim shaming Charles because she's talked about. Yeah, exactly. I don't think she knows what she's doing, although she has managed to make some points. Um, but I do feel like she's victim shaming Charles because she said something about when she's, I guess, was during the call to the insurance people. Maybe it's not victim shaming because it's what she told the insurance lady when she called to find out if she was the beneficiary. And she said that Charles owed people money. She made it sound like he wasn't good with finance or something. And then she brings up all these women that he supposedly had sent messages to, three different women that weekend. And she keeps emphasizing my husband, as if they were, solidly married together and not in the throes of, beginning a divorce, not separated in any way. And then she brings up these women to make it look like Charles was kind of a womanizer or something. I just feel like she's trying to show him in the absolute worst possible light because she kept bringing up the threatening messages too, as if Charles had threatened her physically in some way. Um, yeah, and the poor detective, she didn't know any of this stuff when she was interviewing them. She didn't know that Lori had Charles' phone. She didn't know, half of this stuff. So the initial interviews were done in such a way because they didn't have all the background info. Let me see. I think, yeah, because she was asking, does law enforcement have to let you know that you're being videotaped? Um, oh, the detective, it was interesting how the detective looked directly at the jury when he was giving his testimony. The female detective looked straight on at Lori. I thought it was impressive that the detective really addressed the jury because I thought if anybody's sleeping over there or bored, just having that eye contact with the witness is going to sort of wake them up a little bit more and stir them. I took so many notes, but you guys, if you were watching today, you probably are aware of all these things. Um, let's see. Do you have any questions as I'm just telling you what I want to tell you here? Yeah, the 911 call was made at 8:36. Um, the police showed up at the house at 8:42 a.m. Let's see. Lori, what do I have here? It's weird that Lori took Charles' rental car too. Do you guys think that's weird? Like, why did she drive off with his car? No, Colby was not there today. I was hoping he would be. The only family members that I saw were Kay Woodcock, and then there was Megan Connor was there, and that was it. There was a woman there who her husband was connected with Lori in Idaho, and the the Chad Daybell thing. This woman knew Chad Daybell. She knew his wife, and her husband was that guy. I think his last name is Little Bear. She was there today. So, sounds like she and her husband have divorced since that time, which was a little bit interesting. And she said that she got a little bit of closure today. Lori feels entitled. Is that? They're all good looking. I felt like they were all good looking. The judge is super good looking. It was hard to really get a close up though. Yeah, Colby was saying Colby is really interesting to listen to because I mean, I can really he's explaining his feelings really clearly, and he seems really in touch with what he's going through and how he's looking at it. Hi, Liz. Yes, I wanted to share. I don't feel like I'm very organized though, because I was taking all these notes, and now I'm like thinking, well, if they were watching the trial, they know all this stuff. But I did want to kind of take you inside the courtroom and give you a feeling for, what was going on in there. Yes, the judges. Yes, yes. I wish I could have gotten a little closer look. He seemed really far away in the room. So you walk into the room, to your right are the jurors, and it's a huge box. There's so many seats there. They're not all full. I was surprised at how many of the male jurors had like beards and glasses. It looked like a sea of beards and glasses. And a lot of them look pretty young. I would say like 20s, 30s. There were some middle-aged people, one guy with gray hair, two guys with gray hair, and then the two women. The jurors don't really give much away. I was really trying to keep my eyes on them. And then I was trying to look at Lori too to see how she was, was she looking over at them? And sure enough, she was. Again, she was shaking her head at times to say no and smiling. There were definitely smiles going over toward the jurors. I did not see them in any way smiling back, but it's hard because I'm trying to keep an eye on them. I'm trying to look at her. There's just so much going on. I was really impressed with the prosecutor. She looks really fierce in person. She's really polished and buttoned up, and she's not at all intimidated by Lori. Why should she be? But she's just very strong, and you can just see this is a tough lady. She's very sharp. She's very elegant. She's well made up. I just thought, oh, she's an impressive lady. She has like a real presence. So I think that alone is good for Lori to have that. Kay Woodcock today seemed kind of just not sad, not happy, just not really betraying any emotion. It was very clear that you couldn't go up to her and say hi. She was giving off this vibe like, I don't want to deal with anybody. I don't want to look at anybody today. And I know, I understand that. I'm sure this is so hard for her. Of all the victims in this, like she and Colby really just break my heart so much. They've lost so much. But I would have liked to talk to her just for a second, just to say hi. But there's no way I'm going to approach a victim's family. You have to do that so delicately, so carefully. And I don't ever want to do anything that adds any hurt to people who've been through so much. Um, yeah, well, I'm gonna leave it at that. I'll go back through my notes. It's just my throat is like really scratchy suddenly. I don't know what's going on here. I'm hoping to go back tomorrow. So fingers crossed I get in. I got there early enough. I got there around 7:30. My husband was so kind. He drove me down there and dropped me right off at the exact building, except he dropped me off behind the building, which is kind of sketchy little area there. It doesn't feel so nice. So I walked as quickly as I could to the front, and then I saw all the people waiting, and they were just so nice. Right away, they were like greeting me and talking to me and introducing me. They all know each other from the Idaho trials, Chad and Lori's. So you just right away you felt like, oh, okay, these are nice people, and they're telling me what we're going to experience. You're going to walk in that door. You're going to go through the security, just like you do. Hi, Raspberry. Just like you do at the airport. It really felt like an airport in there. You walk through the metal detector. You put your backpack through the machine. They hand it over to you. You go up to the 5th floor, and then they had some seats there, just like you would in an airport. And everybody sits down, and they're in a certain order. So when you stand up, that's how the rows start to go into the courtroom. And apparently yesterday, 2 people tried to sneak in, and they tried to quickly mingle with everybody who had been waiting there for 3 hours. And everybody was like, no way. They were keeping an eye on who's been here. So, but somehow they got in later. So they did manage to get in, but I thought that was pretty low, like sneaking in when people have been waiting for 3 hours, getting up early, and then you're just going to come and try to like push your way in there. It wasn't going to happen. So that was interesting, but I am going to try again tomorrow. Hopefully I'll take coffee with me tomorrow, because I didn't have any coffee this morning, and that was quite the bummer. And I'll let you know what happens tomorrow. Let me know if you want more of what, the testimony and what they were saying during the testimony, or if you want more of this, like, so-and-so was doing this, Lori smiled over here, Lori did this. To me, I wanted to get close enough to Lori to see if she gives off an evil vibe. I did not get close enough to feel that. And I was shocked that she looked as good as she did, because she looked tan, like I said, and she had a full face of makeup. And I was expecting her to not look that polished, and she really looked quite polished. So that's what I noticed, giving you the tea on things that you probably won't hear on other channels. All right, well, I'm going to let you guys go. I appreciate those of you who have shown up. Thank you, thank you. I know there's other channels that are probably going to tell you more about what went down today. I'll look at my notes again and see if there's things that I want to share with you. And tomorrow I'll be back there in the morning, and then I'll let you know what happened. So thank you again for showing up. And I appreciate you guys so much. I should have maybe announced this, that I was going to go live, but I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, to be honest. And I thought, let's just do it finally. I've been wanting to do lives for so long, but I'm so chicken. But it's easy when I'm not on camera. I'm not distracted by, that element. This is easier. So I figure if I do a couple like this, maybe I can work my way up to, we can look at each other, because I know you get a more personal connection that way. So I'll try to do that. Okay, well, have a great evening, and I hope to see you next time on Bed Crime Stories. Love you guys. Thank you so much for showing up. I really appreciate it. I recognize your names, and I know who you are, and you all like give off the greatest vibes. I just love it. All righty. See you next time. Thank you, Mrs. Jackson. You are so sweet. I'm gonna try to do my best. Like I'm feeling under the weather and I'm absolutely shocked. How did I catch a cold like already? One day out and I'm feeling scratchy. It's so weird. Okay, good night and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.